Welcome to The Good Life. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Patrick Harney. Yeah, I have a great episode today because I have my acting teacher, Chris Holder, who he's been an actor for years. He's been a teacher for, I think almost 30 years, he said. But yeah, it's a good one, and he's got some great stories, and I'm excited for you all to hear it. But first, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can be alerted when a new episode comes out. Comment, let me know what you think, and yeah, let's get to the episode. All right, and we are here, Chris Holder.
Hello.
How are you? For all of you who don't know, and how would you really? Chris is my acting teacher, my acting coach.
Yeah, I don't blame me for anything that you may have found.
But yeah, so Chris, you teach at the Ivana Chubbuck Acting Studio.
Yes.
And you've been teaching there for how long now?
Oh, probably about as long as you've been alive. Which is a while. No, maybe not quite as much. I'm going on my 28th year.
Wow.
So I started my first class teaching for her the month after the studio opened. So wow. It opened in September of 1993, and I started my first class for her in October.
Well, joke's on you, because that's actually longer than I've been alive. So
well, yeah. Okay, there we go.
But you're not just a teacher. You are a working actor, and you have been for years and years and years. So what made you want to start performing and start telling stories?
Well, I'm kind of one of those that knew at a very early age, even though I tried to talk myself out of it for a while. My college degrees, as it turns out, have been useful for me in psychology and economics, but really psychology was the major field of study. And I tried to talk myself out of being a performer while performing to put myself through school. So, I guess I should have figured it out. And I did. I ended up going to acting school instead of law school. So it all kind of worked out. But it was just that noise within, just like anybody else, the noise, the need to get out and get that attention and approval. And, there always seems to be something in our primal years, which is like 5, because before 5, you don't really remember much, but 5 through 12 that kind of define what our needs are as humans. And so I was one of those that was, singing in church and doing the summer musical, and you name it. If I had an opportunity to go out and perform, I did.
Now, you also grew up playing sports as well, correct?
Yes.
So how did that, because I know for myself, I grew up playing sports and then also doing, the musicals and choir and all that stuff. And for a while that was seen as like a no. You don't do that. You do one or the other. So was that the same feeling, or for where you're at? No,
not at all.
Well, aren't you lucky? Jeez.
Now maybe socially I suffered a little because in the high school, the 2 sports that I played were football and basketball. So from freshman all the way through senior. And so that semester, the fall semester, I was kind of accepted by that group. Even though I was still singing, I did I even missed a couple of Christmas concerts because of a playoff game. But that was kind of early on. Later on, we weren't as good. So it wasn't a conflict. Okay, but nonetheless, that fall semester, I was kind of accepted by the more socially acceptable and active, the cool, so they thought kids.
Yeah.
And then in the spring, I did a play in the musical, and I did none of the spring sports on purpose. So during that semester, I was right again put back into the social pariah category of drama geek or muso, and so I guess they coexist, but kind of one semester versus the other.
Okay. Now, when you got to the decision of fully pursuing your acting career, what were some did you have any like funny audition fail stories that or like early audition stories where you're just like, there was no way that this was ever going to happen after this?
Well, I think we all kind of go through that stuff, don't we? We all do. Here again, I think I mentioned that when I was at USC, I wasn't really doing. I was singing in a couple of groups, but I didn't really have time to be doing the musicals or plays, and I wasn't really in the music department. But the musicals, everybody got to audition for it, but I didn't, because I was working. I was getting paid to do it. So I had no time for that. And so I was convincing myself that, gee, I didn't want to make that kind of sacrifice or that kind of commitment, or what, just your confidence wavering.
Yeah.
Even though I was doing it, I was saying, well, gee, I can't really do it. So it didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when I got out of school, I was still working. I was working at a kind of a dinner theater-ish club called Baxter Street in Costa Mesa. And my wife, who was one of my best friends at the time, and we weren't romantically involved for a real long time, she was singing there as well. And it was really one of those way down on the levee, dancing on cobblestones, and
Yeah.
did a tour at a cruise ship, and
Nice.
and all that kind of stuff. And so finally, it was after school, and I just decided what I wanted to do with my life, and I ended up going to something called the Los Angeles Musical Civic Light Opera Workshop, which was very hard to get into, and only by audition. It was like 12 weeks, Monday through Friday, 7 to 11, and then I'd drive back to Orange County, where I was living at the time, and would have to get up at 5:30 to go deliver Coca-Cola for my day job. And I had just finished my last semester of school, so I was actually working as a teacher and then singing at Baxter Street at night. And then I gave up the Baxter Street gig for the time, at least on Thursday and Friday, for the time I was doing the CLO workshop. And that was really where I decided, because I had people telling me that you can make a living at this. And so that's kind of when I jumped in and said, okay, and moved up to Los Angeles, joined the club, and got a commercial agent. Then there was a strike. And so the commercial agent was only sending out non-union people, which I was, but I was one of them that they were sending out. I booked a few things. And then when the unions came back, they were able to find a way to get me to pardon me, my phone went on and it's not supposed to.
You're fine.
I thought I had turned that off. My apologies.
No, it's okay.
So anyway, yeah, then when they came back, I was going, well, the union guys are coming back, and but they said no, and they got me in there, and they got me a few auditions right away. One with a very famous casting director who I believe has passed, named Sheila Manning. At the time, she was the top commercial casting person, maybe in America, but certainly in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And she gave me like three auditions in a row, and I booked McDonald's playing soccer, which I had never played in my lifetime. And I was even the person who had to kick the ball into the net for the shot.
Nice.
Past the fake diving goalie.
Classic.
And I don't know how, but I put in the net all 4 times they asked me to.
Because you're an athlete, that's why.
Well, it was also very slow. I was, it was like, not trying to kick very hard. But that was my first commercial. That's when I got in the union.
Wow. So when did, because you were on a string of 4 different soap operas, right? So you were there was Young and Restless, Days of Our Lives. What else would there was?
Actually, if it Young and the Restless was first.
Okay.
And that was about 3.5 years.
Okay.
Pushing 4. And then I did a play up in Toronto for about 3 months, and kind of zipped by New York on my way in, and auditioned for something called The Edge of Night. And they liked me, but I flew back to Los Angeles, and they called me back, and I had to play as a local hire. So I had some friends who had an extra bedroom in their apartment, and they let me kind of like, throw a futon down on the floor just like anybody else. And that was The Edge of Night, which was a very interesting soap opera that they shot in show order, which is unusual. It was very unusual back then.
Yeah.
Young and the Restless had 2 stages, and depending upon where your set was where those scenes were played on. You were either just the morning or I was almost always morning and evening on the Young and the Restless, or afternoon, because my storyline had proven that we could pull it out. 3 actors in particular, Melody Thomas Scott, Eric Braden, and myself, and the characters' name were Victor, Nikki, and Kevin, had proven that we could, bang out 3 scenes in a half an hour and not go over into golden time. So we were always last. So if I had something in the morning, I was there all day. But at Edge of Night, it was show order. They rehearsed it in order. They shot it in order, and with the cameras moving from what was next up, and they actually paused for the time that the commercial would take.
Wow.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
And lovely. It was wonderful. And all the actors who were on that show loved it. But that got canceled before I even aired. And then they put me on, Procter & Gamble put me on Another World, which was fine, except for a shot in Brooklyn. So it was a schlep to and from.
Yeah.
And then when I left that show, I just happened to back into an audition for a guy named Wade Matthews on All My Children, which was the plumb bad guy of those 18 months. It was just it was just delicious and different than I had done before. But oddly enough, before that role, I couldn't get arrested as a bad guy. And then I did that role, then I couldn't get arrested as a good guy. And I turned into, on episodic and things like well, they called, what did they call him? Yuppie. The kind of yuppie, twisted yuppie who gets led astray, but still not the good guy. I was kind of done with that. But those were the 4. Those were the 4.
Okay. Well, you know, it's funny because my mom is a huge Young and Restless fan, loves it, watches it every day, and has for years and years and years. And and it was funny because I was working a job where I was doing like lawn maintenance for all the township parks, right? And there was a guy that they put me with because they knew that I wanted to be an actor. I was like fresh out of high school, and they knew I wanted to be an actor, and so they threw me with this guy, and they're like, "You go with Double D." And I'm like, "Why?" And
That's
they,
auspicious.
and they said, and they said, "Well, because he was an actor at one point." And I said, "Really?" And so I was chatting with him, and his name is Destin, like D apostrophe Destin. Um, I don't remember his last name, but he did a stint on The Young and the Restless.
Cool.
And it was funny because he brought to work to give to me, to give to my mom, a Crimson Peaks coffee mug. Um,
You got, it's a long time
yeah.
ago.
Okay.
If there was something
So
called
like
Crimson Peaks, I don't remember that.
yeah, that was the like the coffee
Club.
shop in the
Okay.
show.
Okay.
And they've used like the same cups for decades. And so yeah, so I gave that to my mom, and she was pretty psyched about it. Um but yeah, so that was a complete tangent, I'm sorry.
She
But
she she didn't remember who I was, did she? Because it was a long time ago.
well, so I have
That was
I
like 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. That was a long time ago.
so I didn't know your character's name, but I
Kevin.
but I but I, okay, so I did show her a picture of that old
Soap
old
opera thing.
picture of the yeah when you were young. Well, not that one. Well, there's something I think floating online. I think maybe Pat found it or somebody found it where it was you in like a leather jacket or something, and it was a black and white photo. It looked like a headshot. uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I showed her that, and she said that you did look familiar. And then she asked me what your character's name was, and I said I'm not sure, and she said, "Well, I'd probably know." So now that I know your character's name, I'll tell her. But
Well, if she was watching back then, she would understand that I was in a a a triangle with Nikki and Victor, because those two people, even though they're recurring now,
mhm.
they're still kind of on that show.
Oh yeah.
But all the older characters are recurring contracts. They're no longer solid contracts. So
Mm, okay.
so they show. I don't know how much they work, but
Yeah.
I know that Melody's a little younger than I am, and but Eric Brayton
Mhm.
was older than I was.
Mm,
So they're good for them.
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
good for them.
So when did you know that you wanted to start teaching? How did that come about? Because
Well,
you studied with Uta Hagen, right? And
yeah,
then Roy London too.
yeah. I studied with Uda when I was living in New York,
Mm,
and was referred to her and studied in her class. It was kind of before Sue moved there. But so for it was kind of like a summer where I would when I would be there on Saturday. It was a very similar system to what Roy did and somewhat the online class that you did,
mm,
except for the online class you work every week, but in normal classes you work every other week. So I would like go off and make money with an appearance on the week I wasn't going to go up.
mm,
But I was in Uda's class in New York, and Roy was her protege in Los Angeles. So when we moved back to Los Angeles, I coached with Roy a couple of times and then got in classes, and he had an assistant. I had already coached with Roy. I was established and done 4 series and movies, and I was coaching with him on something, And I said, well, maybe I'd like to get back into class. He said, I'd love to have you, but you have to study with my assistant for a scene or so, just to kind of get the lingo down. And at first I was going, just like all the acting, like, really? Okay. And then, but I said, okay. And her name turned out to be Ivana Chubbuck, and she wasn't so bad.
Oh, wow.
So I actually stayed that whole month. And then she booted me out to his top class, which had Hank Azaria and
Jeez.
all sorts of recognizable, but the Sharon Stone, Gina Davis. Oddly enough, people want to put Brad in that class, but he couldn't get it. Brad Pitt, but he couldn't get into that class. Okay, because you had to really be established.
Wow.
In order to get into that class. Clayton Rohner, who you'd recognize from countless movies, and so it was a pretty good environment.
Yeah.
So, but when I studied with them for a while, and then Roy, may rest in peace, passed away in April of 1993. And in Ivana, I remember speaking with her in Linden at one of the services, saying, so when do you open your studio? And she goes, oh, I don't know. Pardon me, but Ivana kind of talks like this. Okay, for those of you who watched Ivana being interviewed by her, she has kind of a low, kind of little gravelly voice. I don't do her nearly justice. And if you're listening, Ivana, then know you love me. Okay, so you go, I don't know if I'm gonna do that, or and I said, well, why not? Why not? All these people know you. Go ahead. I'll jump in your class, and I did when it started. But after about 3 or 4 months, she and I realized that I couldn't be a student and a teacher at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And that just, it evolved. When I was studying with Roy, Hunter Tylo, who played my little sister in All My Children, and got married to Michael Tylo, wonderful actor, soap operas, TV, Lonesome Dove, films, who unfortunately passed away this October. But they were good friends of mine, and they had eventually come to Los Angeles. So Hunter was asking for a woman to coach her, and I introduced her to Ivana. So she and Ivana had a history, and evidently that she told Ivana, well, Chris used to teach. So she offered the position to me. And it was in 1993, and we had just, our second child had been born in April, and it was, somebody kind of had to be home all the time. And my wife's job took her on the road. So, it kind of had to be me. So I thought that the universe was opening a door for me that I wasn't trying to open, and that I should pay attention to that. And I still did an acting career until about 2006, 7. And then about that time, I figured, well, you really have to, kind of join one club or the other. But I still act, but it's just for fun. And I don't care. And if people ask me, but I don't go out and audition or do that anymore. Right? That I'm busy enough doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
As you well know.
Yeah. So you had a story about a scene that you had done with Sharon Stone and what that was like. If you don't mind, can you tell that story?
I've got too many stories, many of which I cannot relate to a public. Okay, I might relate to you, and I was thinking about those. about some of those stories. I go, no, I can't
Can't tell that one.
I really can't tell that one. I really can't tell that one. Okay, so the majority of them are meant for that moment in time. But this one that you're saying is my very first scene in Roy London's class when I just, got moved up after the month with Ivana. Was from a Lawrence Kasdan film called Body Heat. And it was a power scene, but it was between two not the best people in the world. And I got put with Sharon Stone, and this is before Total Recall came out. So she wasn't really recognizable by everybody.
Or was that Basic Instinct?
Oh, no. Total Recall was before Basic Instinct.
Oh.
Total Recall, the success of Total Recall got her the job on Basic Instinct.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I was thinking they were flipped. Sorry.
No, Total Recall was first. That's kind of where we met her.
Okay.
And she looked a lot different in both of those. But when I met her, she looked a little bit more like the Total Recall girl, the bigger hair, not short, curly. But they assigned me that scene. So when I rehearsed it, because I didn't understand how things were in that class, that was really about winning the scene. And it was definitely, if you wanted to win the scene on a power scene, you looked for ways to throw your scene partner under the bus and to devastate them. So during rehearsal, that she was the nicest person in the world, talking to me, interested who I was, what I had done, and married, blah 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 blah. So when we performed the scene, the rehearsals were completely different, and in the scene, she doesn't even look at me. Won't even look at me, won't pay any attention. Okay, so I'm a human being. I get in my head.
Yeah.
Something that I rarely did. But, I did then. I was going, woo. Okay, so man, I was toast. I got eaten alive in that first scene. And then I found out later they kind of feed the new guys to Sharon. Did have her eat them up, and okay, but I'm looking at her and I'm going, you bitch. Okay. And she's laughing. I'm saying, okay, it's on.
Yeah.
All right. I get the game now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I necessarily won the second work of that, but I held my own. Maybe a little bit more than held my own, because I just come up playing all those roles. Those bad guy roles. So I knew how to play a power scene. Okay, so I got in there and duked it out with her. And so after the second work, Roy kind of actually said, well, I guess you belong after all. And it's just going, ooh, I didn't know it was that close, but okay.
So what have been some of your favorite performances or works that you've seen, whether you were experiencing them in the classes that you were participating in or classes that you were teaching? Have there been any performances or scenes that like really stand out that you will never forget?
Well, Charlize, who I called Charlie Theron, did something that was just astounding. And she just, if anybody knows her story, that there was kind of a real dark episode in time in her life that she had to come through in South Africa. And, that's probably common public knowledge. It was way back then, but still, I'm not going to get into it, but it had to do with her family.
Okay.
But she had a fearlessness because of that was palatable. And when she first came to me, it's only because her mother made her, and essentially to Ivana, and then to me to get to Ivana. uh, um, she didn't want any kind of acting teacher at all because she thought that they were going to kind of tell her what to do. And I was teaching her the technique, but her instincts, because I recognized that her instincts were just, they were right on for her. So there are a couple of scenes, but I will say most of the time, scenes in class, I'm locked into where we're going and what we're doing and what we're building.
Yeah.
So I don't get taken in by performances very often. A handful, maybe. So, but she was one of them, and said she was obviously recognizable. Someone would know who that is.
Yeah.
But there have been things where, people have just opened up a vein, and revealed where I am certainly moved.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that I was gotten. That really doesn't happen very often.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because there was so I mean I've been in your class for, what was it, like a year and a half straight. And I will be back, taking a little hiatus right now, but I will be back. And out of that whole time, you've always had, no matter how good a scene was, you've always had something to pick at, to try and help improve with them, which is
to build on would be what I would call. Yeah.
There's been one time where I saw you, or where I witnessed you not say anything to improve upon. You just said that was a great scene, or that was a great job.
Who did? Was that one of your scenes by any chance?
No, not even close.
Okay,
no,
who was it?
Always had something to say. It was Shalithia.
Oh man, when she jumps in, she's a force of nature, and
right?
That's what Charlize,
yeah.
But when she really jumps in, she takes you with her.
And I remember when that happened, and you had just told her, you said that was a great job, like, and that's all I have to say about that. I remember, like, all of us were like, what like,
okay, yeah, I almost said something I shouldn't be able to say.
No, it's all right, but
okay,
it was like that. Like, that does happen. You know what I mean? Because
not very often.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often with Ivana either.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Probably even less.
But yeah. And so, like, from and I always knew she was good, but that performance, I was like, whoa.
She transcended.
Yeah. Like, she is a powerhouse.
But and she wouldn't mind me saying this because I say it in front of all of you, but she has to give herself permission, which is a common malady between actors, that they want a director or a teacher or somebody to give them permission to be all that they could be, to make the character all that they could be, not what the kind of through line says. And as you know, in the Chubbuck technique, we're often saying that your objectives might be some things that aren't necessarily plot driven, but driven by your inner work. But if, like, the character dies, well, the kind of common thought would be, well, that isn't what the character wanted to do, as upon, well, that's what the character ends up happening. So subconsciously, maybe there was some sort of direction to be released or freed from a difficult life. So there are some very unique aspects to this, which people tend to relate to. But you've done plenty of good work. But with you have to get out of your head, which again is a common, me too. I just admitted it happened to me.
Yeah.
That you just go right in it, and you realize that you're kind of screwed at that point.
Oh yeah.
The whole audience is watching you all of a sudden not
Flounder.
being real, yeah, being fake, and so you're just like done. And so our malady, you
Mm,
and I, which is common to like everybody,
yeah.
except for maybe just a handful.
Hmm.
And those people are like utter sociopaths. Okay, but just utter handful. We all do that. Every actor does that.
Yeah.
But it's. I think it harkens back to giving yourself permission to jump in with
Mm,
both feet and not give a rat's what you really say or do until it's over.
yeah. Well, I will say this ever since I had started studying with you and working on the technique, because I mean, and I'm sure you can understand this coming from a sports background. I always like to try to have some sort of game plan, or strategy when I deal with things. And to
Yeah.
me, like the technique has been the only has been the only thing that I have found that allows me to kind of have like a checklist, almost like a step by step. Okay, if I do this, that'll help me lead to this and this and this, finding the objectives, finding the substitutions, the beats and actions, the obstacles, all that kind of stuff. Um, and and it's funny because now I look back at some of my previous performances, whether it be in films or theater or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, like I wish I could go back and redo that, apply this technique to it, and
Never go backwards, go forwards.
true. That's true.
This is everything is unfolding right in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what you said about the game plan?
Hmm.
It's you have a game plan. You just have to leave it at the front door.
Yeah.
When you do step 12, which is let it go,
Mm-hmm.
then the whole game plan, with the exception of your objective, because you've already loaded it in. So now it's there to motivate you. You can just, it's very freeing, really,
Yeah.
because you have nothing specific to accomplish. You've already made those choices.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Al Pacino quote that I love. Somebody asked him, well, what do you do? Well, I make a whole lot of choices and I hope some of them work.
Yeah.
So
Well, you have to,
you make those choices, but you don't have to be, okay, well, I'm thinking here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe when you were breaking it down or rehearsing,
Mm-hmm.
you tried those things out. But once you actually make the choice,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be there for you.
Yeah.
And you've done that.
There's been a few times where I've felt that I've done that, but then there's been many times where I get stuck at that door, where that game plan tends to
Give yourself permission.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the game plan's there. I mean, from doing things, if I may, what was your primary sport?
Basketball.
Okay. What position did you play?
I played a small forward.
Okay, so you played the three
On the wing. Yep. I was a shooter.
The three shooter. So that means the game plan is that we're gonna defend this person this way. We're gonna make him go to his right. We're gonna set up on the break in this position so the point guard knows I'm gonna be there no matter what.
Yeah.
So there's the game plan, but once you were really playing in the middle of the game, did you have to think about any of that?
No. It was all instinctual.
It's the same thing as acting.
Yeah.
Because you would rehearse it, you would plan it, you would practice it. Well, when it's time to play the game, it's just time to go play the game.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are giving you obstacles, and you have to overcome those obstacles, and that's going to require some adjustment. Okay, so it's really the same. Artistically, you have a game plan. You just don't try to execute it in the middle of performing.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways with sports, you don't do that either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're going back and you're supposed to hit that guy on a 10-yard out, but the quarterback is ready to jump that route, well, then you have to go somewhere else. the game plan was to throw the ball to them, but they're not going to catch that ball. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's just your training, what you've done it, you put it in your body, your muscle memory, the memory of your emotional arc through the scene. All of those things just play out naturally if you get out of their way. What they're doing. You've done that. So
well, thank you. So I know that we got to watch our time. So if I could, I'd like to get to the segment, the goods, a few rapid fires, just to pick your brain and see where we land.
Wow. Okay. God knows. Okay. And by the way, he did not tell me these.
No.
So this is so you're going to find out whether I'm answering honestly or BSing right now.
Yes, it is. It is always, because I always like to keep everybody on their toes. Okay, what is your social security number? Go. No, I'm just kidding. What's
I'm going, wow, who started to tell you that? Has anybody started to tell you that?
Unfortunately, no. But
okay.
but one day, it only takes one, right?
Yeah,
it's like that whole.
Not gonna do you any good.
It's like that whole thing with auditions. You get out of 100, you get 99 no's, but it only takes one, right?
Well, auditioning is your job.
Yes, it is.
So that's what you get good at.
Yeah.
Doing the job is a vacation.
What, in your opinion, do you think is the best film of all time?
Boy, I have thought of that, and I have so many up there. Yeah, I will still go back, and I won't watch Casablanca time and time again, even though I love the film. And I don't. I mean, yeah, I saw Citizen Kane. I was going,
yeah.
And I actually even worked on All My Children with Ruth Warwick, who played the wife. She was part of the Mercury Players.
Wow.
So it's great stories about Orson Welles. But when The Godfather comes on, I will watch it.
Yeah.
So I would have to say it's either The Godfather or something that's going to absolutely surprise you. Young Frankenstein by Gene Wilder, directed by Mel Brooks.
Okay.
So it's kind of one's comedic, one's more dramatic.
Yeah, that's a classic. Okay, now if you could, because I know you said you don't really do a whole lot of acting anymore, other than just doing it for fun. But if you could come out of semi-retirement for acting and like work with one person, who would it be?
Boy, I'd like to do Big Daddy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with I'm trying to think. It would have been Brad Pitt, but Brad would say, "Nah, I'm way too long in the tooth for that." And he's considerably younger than me, but not that far. But that would be the role that I would want to do, and maybe with Charlize as Cat.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
And then finally, in a world of craziness and especially in a career where it's not your typical, your typical day job type career, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay centered in your life?
I married the right person. That's the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Without her, I'm probably not even alive at this point, because of an illness I went through when I was 44. But I married the right person. That's really. I have a great life partner.
Yeah.
Who I am devoted to and owe more than I could ever come close to repaying her. I mean, that I that that account is never going to be balanced.
Yeah.
You know, they say that if you get the right person, you both think you got the better part of the deal. Well, both of us think that I got the better part of the deal. Okay, and everybody we know thinks that I got the better part of that deal. So that would be pretty solid. Yeah, that.
How long have you been married for?
I was 36 years. I also meditate. That kept me focused and visualize myself momentarily doing everything that I auditioned for, and then I let it go. For me, what I was taught was to say this or better, God. That I said, okay, this one, or if you have something better in mind, you know. So I learned not to carry every audition with me. There are a couple that I still make me, you know, that I made the choice that I did.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, c'est la vie. And so some spiritual practice and marrying the right person. That would be my combination.
Recipe. Okay.
Oh, and my last advice is stay away from tortilla chips. Okay, that's my the last bit of advice.
That's very specific, but I like it.
Don't become addicted to tortilla chips.
Well, too late.
Bad.
No. Okay.
Too late for me, too.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, for doing this, and thank you for coming on. I always love talking with you, and I hope we get to do it again like this soon. And I know I'll be seeing you back in class hopefully sooner rather than later. So thank you.
All right. So do me a favor. Not that I particularly care to watch myself on camera anymore. I really don't. Okay. But let me know when this airs, and I would like to, you know, dial in and see what a complete ass of myself I made.
I will definitely send it over to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. And the class would enjoy watching me make an ass out of myself as well.
Oh, I'll definitely be.
Oh, yeah. I kind of figured that would happen. Yeah, okay. All right.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Take care, man.
All right. And that's it. That's all we got. Thank you, Chris, for being here. Thank you to all of you who may have made it this far. And if you didn't, well, then you won't know what I'm saying. But that's all I got. So I'll see you next week. Thank you.